Well, let's return to our top story, the latest twists in the general election. We're joined from Westminster by Tom Slater, Deputy Editor of Spiked Online, and by Aaron Bastani, Senior Editor at Novara Media. Gentlemen, good to see you both. I suppose we'll start with you, Tom. In terms of the conduct of the general election so far, the Tories appear to have been slightly more muted than we might have expected. Jeremy Corbyn, rather more positive.
No, certainly. He certainly seems to have come out swinging more. And I think really what that points to is the fact that this general election, more so than any really for decades, there's a lot more at stake. And I think that for a very long time we've been asked to basically choose between two technocrats and different coloured rosettes. But at this general election, there's a very real choice and a very real thing being presented. Now, that choice is not between strong and stable leadership and a Labour government that will stand up for ordinary people. And it's certainly not about bank holidays or who's going to tax people what. What I think has happened with this general election is it's effectively become another vote on Brexit. And I think that's what's imbued it with a lot of dangers, but also a lot of opportunities for democratic Brexiteers like myself. I think the dangers are that going into this election as it is set up, is that it will become, if there are gains for the Lib Dems, for Remainer MPs, for anti-Brexit MPs effectively, that will put a bit more wind in their sails. But I think that the opportunity here is to really kind of deepen the Brexit spirit effectively, to try and make clear to the political class that we are serious, that our view hasn't been undimmed over the last weeks and months. And I think that the reason that ultimately we can talk about policies, ultimately we can talk about the different pitches of the political parties, Brexit overrides all of this. And that's why I think that it's something that all voters have to take very seriously, because democracy itself is on the line.
Aaron Bastani, a Brexit election, in your view, would that seem to cause some problems for the Labour Party, given the vacillation that there has been from the leader downwards, their position on Brexit?
Not really. I think Labour have the most popular position in the country, which is soft Brexit. The Lib Dems want a second referendum. The Tories want hard Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn's been very clear. We are leaving the European Union, and we are leaving the European Union. The question this general election makes incredibly salient is, what kind of country do we want to be over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And that will be outside of the European Union. And will it look different to the last 30 years, where we've had a failed economy, which works for the millionaires, not the millions, where public services aren't what they should be, and where wages, quite frankly, aren't just standing still, they're going down.
Well, Aaron Bastani, but on that point, I mean, it appears that we've still got to find out exactly what the Labour Party's slogan, but one possible one that was touted around, for the many, not the few. I mean, it's almost a carbon copy of the position that was taken by the Labour Party in 1997 by Tony Blair.
Well, 1997 actually had some very progressive elements to it. You know, I'm no fan of Tony Blair, but I thought the first Labour term in 97 was very good. Minimum wage, freedom of information, devolution, some very brave policies there. So I think you're seeing the same with Jeremy Corbyn, some really brave agenda-setting policies, and very exciting. You know, we're not used to excitement in a general election, and the turgid response to the Conservative Party of stability, security, tells you everything you need to know. And you know what? I don't think Theresa May seriously believes she can defend her record either in government in the last year or the Tories over the last 7 years, quite simply because she won't go into a debate and defend them herself. There's nothing to defend. It's been a catastrophe by every measure.
Tom Slater, are you perhaps surprised that the Prime Minister has chosen, first of all, not to offer her support for those televised debates, but also, in addition to that, has left a vacuum around policy areas such as tax rises, such as triple lock and pension, that the opposition parties have been able to make hay with?
No, certainly. And I think, if anything, there's a lot of speculation that when the Tory manifesto does actually materialise, it's going to be actually quite short on the detail. And I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that May is an opportunist in many respects. And I think that this is an attempt, of course, to increase her majority. To what end, we're not sure. There are competing theories, whether it's isolating the Brexiteers or actually trying to limit the influence of the anti-Brexit MPs. But I think what really we need to not get too hung up on this point about, really, this is about the policies rather than about the overall context, which is Brexit. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, in terms of Labour and its focus on this kind of policy blitz rather than, and its absolute refusal really to talk about Brexit in any meaningful way. In Jeremy Corbyn's opening speech, I think he mentioned it once, I think is actually reflects a kind of cowardice. It can't grapple with the idea of Brexit because I think it undermines so much of what the Labour Party has come to stand for. And so whilst there is obviously a lack of detail from Theresa May at this point, and that's something which we should all be sceptical of, we can't get away from the fact that this is a general election which will be about Brexit. It's about, and the important thing about that in terms of the other issues that you or I or Aaron might care about is that the thing about Brexit is, and what it represents, which is popular democracy, involvement of the people in politics, is that it enriches all of the issues that we might care about. You want to talk about the economy, social care, you name it. By establishing that principle that the most powerful thing in British politics should be the people's will, their ideas, their aspirations, we enrich debate across the board. And that's why I think in terms of Labour, this strategy of trying to avoid Brexit by just talking about the ins and outs of their policy offer reflects a kind of cowardice and a refusal to kind of reckon with that big opportunity. I think it scares them.
Aaron, Jeremy Corbyn might not be desperately keen to speak about Brexit, but one thing he has been talking about a lot this morning is defence and security. Some of the answers that he gave play well to his base, the equivocation on nuclear weapons, pulling troops away from NATO operations, ending airstrikes on Syria, plays well to the base, but he needs to reach out beyond the base if he's going to make significant inroads into the Conservative majority.
I think Jeremy Corbyn's position on Trident is perfectly clear. I think it's very. It's very intelligent.
What is his position then?
Well, it's to make sure the people most informed on these decisions make them. You know, we have people in the military who are far more informed about the right and wrong decisions. Are there variants on Trident we could go for? Are there other nuclear deterrents which would be better or more cost effective? You know, we have a very intelligent civil service. We have very intelligent people at the Ministry of Defence. Jeremy Corbyn is saying there would be a review of nuclear weapons and they would be done by the right people, the people who are best informed and are looking out for Britain's best interests.
Aaron, that does rather beg the question why he had a vote at the Labour conference on the issue then. Are they the best people to be making the decision?
What's that?
Why Jeremy Corbyn had a vote at Labour Party conference on renewal of Trident?
Because we're a democratic party and the membership cares about this issue. But Jeremy Corbyn's been quite clear. When it comes to nuclear weapons, smart, informed people will be making the right decisions on this. This is not a political football. This is about people's security.
Tom, just a final point from you. In terms of the other parties, the Liberal Democrats seem to have they've taken their stance on Brexit. They've made it pretty clear. That hasn't really been reflected in any significant bump in the polls, though.
No, it hasn't. And of course, no one's talking about the Lib Dems kind of surging to power and then making sure that Brexit doesn't happen. But I think the thing we need to be very careful about is that there is a very concerted effort amongst the kind of millionaire class rearguard Remain campaign to try and stop Brexit from happening, to try to slow it down. And I think even some minor gains for the Lib Dems, whether it's in South London, whether it's in the South West, is going to put wind in their sails. And let's not forget, we've got a Prime Minister who campaigned for Remain, albeit half-heartedly, and at heart is a pragmatist and a technocrat, giving her more reason to pivot, more reason to water Brexit down, more reason to listen more to the voices of moderation rather than that public cry from democracy that we heard last June is a very bad thing. So I think that anyone who's even considering voting Lib Dem should really keep in mind the main thing is that they've basically set themselves out as the party that is against democracy. You might agree with them on Brexit, but that's a terrible precedent to establish as we go forward in what should be a new and very positive democratic era.
Tom Slater, Aaron Bastani, thanks both for joining us once again on Sky News.